Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going over a really interesting set of data that a Battlefield community member collected after he made a survey essentially hoping to gauge what the Battlefield community wants for the next Battlefield game. This survey gauges what people's first Battlefield game was, what was their favorite, ask them gunplay questions, map questions, basically every type of question possible relating to Battlefield, and they got over 6,000 responses. So while it isn't the largest sample size, it's certainly an interesting sample size to take a look at. So that's what we're going to do in this video. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button and of course subscribe to the channel. This is a closed survey, so for those of you that want to take it, I'm sorry you can't, but let's look at the data. Oh, and a bit of a shameless plug because I don't really talk about it in YouTube videos very much, but I want to thank you guys for smashing the support on my glitch energy flavor called Rageade. If you didn't know, yes, I do have my own energy drink flavor. Apparently, you guys have bought over 140 of these things and counting, and the stock is running low. So if you want to try it, use code ENDERS for 20% off. First link in the description. So the first thing I want to look at is what people answered is their first Battlefield game. I'm not going to be able to look at everything in this survey because if I would, it would be like an hour-long video. But it's interesting to take a look at this because you can see the vast dispersion between all the different games that people played first. 20% Battlefield 3, 11.7% Battlefield 4, 9.1% Battlefield 1, and then people stretch back all the way to 1942, Battlefield 2, Battlefield Bad Company 2. As you can see, the Battlefield community has started their Battlefield experience in a multitude of different Battlefield games. And the next thing I want to take a look at is what people's favorite Battlefield game is. And pretty overwhelmingly, people have said Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3. That takes up the majority of the data, with 19% of people saying Battlefield 1, and then it just goes down from there. Do have to say, though, those 273 people that answered Battlefield 2042 might need to get this checked a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Another really interesting thing to take a look at is what other games do Battlefield players play when they're not playing Battlefield. 24% of people played Apex. About 40% played Call of Duty. And we have some competitive games in here as well. 26% played Rainbow Six. 31% played Counter-Strike. Now, obviously, only 6,000 people played this survey, so if you poll like 600,000 people, this would obviously be different, but this is what we have to look at. But another key piece of this data is 32.1% of people also played milsim and hardcore games such as Arma, Hell Let Loose, Squad, etc. That would explain the amount of people in my comment section that think that Battlefield should be a milsim when it never has been and never will be. Unsurprisingly, when it comes to the setting, people voted overwhelmingly for a modern setting or near future. I would consider those things like almost the same, but 2000s is modern, 80s is also modern, Cold War also modern. If you want to talk about the weaponry and the tanks and stuff, it would play like a modern game. So overwhelmingly, people want a modern Battlefield game. And then also unsurprisingly, people want a serious and realistic tone for the next Battlefield as well. So far, nothing really shocking in this data. Some data that restored my faith in humanity is the fact that people obviously want Conquest to be the main game mode with, Breakthrough and other modes taking up, the rest of the votes there. Then people voted against 128 players. Thank God. 128 players, you don't need to do it. You actually can't do it very well, as they prove in Battlefield 2042. And unsurprisingly, people overwhelmingly voted against a Battle Royale or Extraction mode in the next game, even though it's already confirmed, which is interesting. So I don't really understand why people would want to vote against it now, because maybe they don't know it's already in the next game. Now we're kind of in a point where even if you don't want it, you should hope for it to be successful. Then the most surprising point of data, perhaps in this entire survey, is the fact that apparently, at least in this sample size, people would actually not be opposed to seeing a esports or sort of ranked mode for Battlefield. As you can see, 16% of people said yes, definitely. A quarter of people said would be nice, and over a quarter of people say they would be neutral to it. So combining all this data here, it's actually sort of, at least in this sample size, there's a majority of people that wouldn't mind seeing a competitive mode, which is nice because I think it would really add something new to Battlefield that, in my opinion, it's desperately needed for a very long time. Moving on to some more specific data, people answered, should vehicles primarily spawn in the team's bases? And surprisingly, at least surprisingly to me, an overwhelming amount of people actually voted yes. And I have to say, I don't really notice a difference between the games that had vehicles spawn in people's bases and the games that have vehicles sort of appear out of thin air. Now, coinciding with this, people also answer the question, should additional vehicles be made available by capturing certain flags? Again, overwhelming majority of people seem to be in favor of this. I believe this was introduced in Battlefield 1, if I'm not mistaken. Could be mistaken. Maybe it was Battlefield 4, but primarily my memory jumps to Battlefield 1 with this. I think it's a completely, fine thing. It gives the team that is dominating even more of an advantage, which some people don't like, but generally speaking, I think it's sort of okay. Moving on to some questions relating to the game's gunplay and the spread. I'm not a big fan of how some of these questions were asked. I think that the people asking these questions maybe don't understand Battlefield time to kill that well. But how high should the TTK be? Kind of a weird way to ask the question. The majority of people said they want like a medium time to kill, which is reasonable. I actually think this is a very based answer. I was sort of afraid that people were going to say like they want a super fast time to kill because, realism. But I'm happy to say they answered a medium time to kill. No complaints there. How much spread and recoil should weapons have? Generally speaking, people want like medium recoil and medium spread. They basically want like Battlefield 4.5, but slightly improved spread from Battlefield 4, if that makes sense. Then this really surprised me, and I'm kind of disgusted. Should visual recoil exist? Let me explain what visual recoil is to you guys. Visual recoil is literally fake recoil that lies to you. It has nothing to do with the actual recoil of your weapon. It is a visual aspect that moves the weapon's sight in a way that is undesirable. And people basically said, yes, but bullets should go where I'm aiming. It should be overwhelmingly no. Visual recoil should never exist. Ever. It should not be in the game. Just straight up. Jumping ahead to some sniper-specific questions. Should the sniper sweet spot from Battlefield 1 be implemented? Obviously not. Sweet spots are a plague. They were one of the worst ideas I've ever seen. People like to say, oh, bro, I'm standing within the sweet spot, distance. Oh, I'm playing for the sweet spot. 95% of the time, when you sweet spotted someone in Battlefield 1, it was a complete and utter accident. All right? It's a stupid mechanic. And it's just honestly completely overpowered. It should never be in the game. Unfortunately, Battlefield 1's player base has done irreparable damage to the franchise, and 41% of people actually voted yes. Very concerning to see. Should sniper rifles be one shot to the body at close range? Yes, but within like 10 meters. Otherwise, it just becomes ridiculous, because at that point, it's not really a sweet spot. It's sort of just a shotgun that's extremely accurate. Kind of like a slug shotgun. So yes, but like 0 to 10 meter range only, and only in center mass chest. Now some real doozies, because all this data coming up here, it just kind of boggles my mind, even looking at it right now. This is obviously going to be a very controversial question. How should aim assist work? 28% of people in this data said no aim assist at all. Now, I have to be honest, this is probably mouse and keyboard players skewing the data here. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Although, Battlefield's player base is one of the only player bases I have seen in modern FPS games that actually doesn't seem to want more aim assist. And the data actually backs that up, because the majority of people voted weaker rotational aim assist and slowdown. Very interesting. Now, the next question hurts my soul. How should suppression work? Obviously, there should be no suppression. And if it is in the game, it should only be visual. But actually, the majority of people voted for suppression that affects spread and visuals. Let me just be honest here. If you want suppression that affects my aim, if you want suppression that rewards you for missing and punishes me because you missed, I'm sorry, but you don't really understand good game design. Suppression was trash. The only way suppression is acceptable in Battlefield is if it is only visual and it does not affect spread or my aim or anything regarding my gunplay. Okay? I can't believe this data. Here's something that's super interesting. You remember the axed or omitted Battlefield 5 mechanic called soldier dragging? Apparently, that made a massive impact on people, and people want it not only for squad mates, but for all teammates in the next Battlefield game. I wasn't aware that this mechanic that never made it into Battlefield 5 left such an impact on people. Comment down below, why do people want to drag teammates? Because let me guarantee you something right now. There is no teamwork in Battlefield, okay? 95% of the time, there is no teamwork, okay? This mechanic would be used to troll people and to stream snipe me, basically. I guarantee you this would not be utilized in a useful manner in-game. And the same can be said for the attrition system. This system is obviously trash, and I'm very happy to see the people that voted in this survey that voted against attrition. Attrition was a horrendous mechanic that only affected good players because only good players survived long enough for the attrition mechanic to set in and to take effect. Period. Here's a question that has just so much history. This is a long debate. How large should squads be? I'm very happy to see the majority of people actually voted for the logical answer, which is 4. But for some reason, a lot of people, 2,000, almost 200 people, voted for 5-man squads in a game that doesn't have a player count divisible by 5. I don't know, go figure. Now, onto everyone's favorite thing and something that the Battlefield community is extremely passionate about, community features. How important are platoons? Obviously, people feel very strongly about platoons, and they voted for them en masse. Should all chat exist? Yes, and enabled by default. I applaud you guys that voted in this survey. Absolutely based. Should the chat be censored? Yes, but only for severe cases. Again, the majority of people voted for the correct thing here, in my opinion. Based once again. Should optimal proximity chat be implemented? I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to say no. I don't want to hear your proximity chat because guess what, guys? Who's played Warzone? Comment down below. 95% of the time, whenever you hear proximity chat, it's some guy that has an Xbox that is 37 feet away from his television, and he is constantly broadcasting not only his game audio, but there's a vacuum going on in the background, their parents are arguing, and you can literally hear the traffic outside. So, if you're going to implement proximity chat, please let me turn it off. Please. One feature that I would love to see return personally is the community test environment. The last time we had this was in Battlefield 4. I think the best time to bring it back is right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm happy to see that in this data that was reflected, 63% of people almost voted in favor of bringing the community test environment back. This would essentially just prevent, well, fuck-ups, or help mitigate them at the bare minimum. This is great. And this is another funny question. Are you happy with the current community management? 50% of people said no, and the other 44.7% said neutral. Only 4.8% of people in this survey voted that they are happy with the community management. That's a strong statement. Here's a simple one for you, DICE. Should there be a server browser? 83.4% of people said yes, and it's very important. Just something to consider. Here is an absolutely vile response. I actually almost projectile vomited when I saw this. Should skill-based matchmaking exist in Battlefield? 61.6% of people chose the correct answer, which is no, but shockingly, the rest of people either said yes but not strong, or just flat out yes. Let me tell you guys something, okay? Pull a chair up. Battlefield as a game, as a franchise, as a concept, cannot, and I repeat, cannot have skill-based matchmaking. It is incompatible. You can't do it and retain the way Battlefield actually plays. You can't, which is why they haven't done it, because it is, once again, not compatible. However, one thing that is compatible and has been utilized before is a team balancer, and thankfully people voted in a majority for team balancer in between matches. Team balancers have always been in the game. There's like a skill rating attached to your account or whatever. It's not skill-based matchmaking, but it just sort of tries to make the game a little less lopsided. That is ideal. That's compatible with a game that has 64 players in a server. Here's the movement section. I was kind of dreading this section, knowing the Battlefield community's general opinions on movement, seeing that there are so many fans of how Battlefield 1 has their movement implemented, which is no movement at all. I am happy to say that people voted for a medium amount of movement, which is acceptable. I will completely say that BF3/4 speed of movement, that's acceptable. Totally fine. No problems or quarrels from me there. How should the slide work? You know, I was actually surprised here as well. 42.7% of people voted medium fast but with control, essentially the Battlefield 5 slide. Again, no complaints from me there. I was expecting like overwhelmingly against the slide. I really was. Then manual leading makes a big appearance in this. People overwhelmingly want to be able to manually lean in Battlefield. I'm sort of neutral. I don't really care, but you know, I'll take it. How important is automatic leaning? I mean, like, if you're going to have manual leaning, this doesn't really need to be in the game. And then, which additional features should be present? This is pretty funny. Only 22.3% of people said bunny hopping should be in Battlefield. It's funny because bunny hopping has never been in Battlefield. But people, I think, miscategorize bunny hopping. People think bunny hopping is like jumping twice. That's not bunny hopping. Bunny hopping is like 4 or 5 jumps in a row. So if the question is, should bunny hopping be in Battlefield? Probably not. Should being able to chain a few jumps together be in Battlefield? Yes. That might be a controversial opinion, but absolutely yes. People overwhelmingly voted for a lot of the BF5 features. They want crouch running back. Unfortunately, people want back proning back. I'm totally against back proning. People want ledge grabbing, high vault, rolling from Battlefield 5 to reduce fall damage, or I think actually remove fall damage if you time it correctly. I'm happy to see that like less than half of people wanted tactical sprint back. I'm personally a big fan of having one sprint speed only in Battlefield. I find tactical sprinting to be tedious and irritating. And you know, I'm not surprising to see that people do not want to see grapple hooks back in the next Battlefield after dealing with Battlefield 2042 McKay, and people do want ziplines back in order to reach areas of height. Here's a bit of a depressing one. Content. How should the game be supported? Now, as many of you know, it has already been confirmed by the CEO of EA himself that the next Battlefield is live service. So these questions are sort of null and void because the decision has already been made. But unsurprisingly, people overwhelmingly voted for DLCs and premium content. We're not getting that. Here's a bit of a controversial one in my opinion. Would you like to see remastered/remade maps? The majority of people, overwhelmingly so actually, said yes they would. Now, in my opinion, remastered maps are a bit of a cop-out because it's just the former developers having their work copied, right? But on the positive side, you do get a certain amount of guarantee that the maps they copy they're actually going to be good. Like, they could copy Grand Bazaar and remaster it. They could make Achibaba from Battlefield 1 again. They could give us Operation, I don't know, Lockers, or you name any classic Battlefield map, and they could give us it. So I think I'm in favor of it overall. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. There are, and I'm not exaggerating, like 30 more questions here. Most of them are miscellaneous. I sort of cover the big stuff in my opinion. Basically, people want Battlefield 3.5 or Battlefield 4.5. That is the feedback that I'm seeing. That is the feedback that DICE should probably see, because that is the feedback they've been getting for, I don't know, like 6 years at this point. 6, 7 years maybe. The next Battlefield game isn't hard to make. I have said this a million times. All they have to do is execute and understand what their community actually wants. But that has proven very difficult for DICE. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts on some of the data you've seen. I will link this data in the description so you can take a deep dive into it, because as I mentioned, I did skip over a lot of more miscellaneous things. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.